Hello, Shrewdness fans. Welcome to the podcast today. We're missing Lou this week, but Chiz and Dex are here with me. I'm Prue. We are going to talk about Guillotine Fantasy Football to start out tonight. Let's jump into the show. We'll hit our normal Missouri sports teams in a different episode later on, but we're going to start with Guillotine. Dex,
That's right.
still alive this week?
Still alive. We were going to the depths of finding some roster replacements for the old squad this week, and I dumpster dived, but I think they're going to be pretty good. And I got two dudes I was debating to pick up. So you guys are going to like who and who when I give you these names, but I actually think they'd probably be viable plays this week as well. So I needed to fill some spots because Jordan Addison did not come back. I lost Isaiah Pacheco, not helpful.
Ooh.
And yeah, I needed spots. I needed to fill two spots. So I had Pacheco in one of my flexes, and I had Addison slated to be in the other flex. So I dug deep. There's still 16 teams in there, and I had to find a viable candidate who wouldn't get shut out. And so I was looking, and the first guy I picked up was Devon Vele. Who the hell is Devon Vele?
Exactly.
That's what I said, too.
For Denver,
And then
right?
I dug a little deeper. He is a 26-year-old rookie out of Utah playing for the Denver Broncos and 7th-round pick, I believe. And I looked at him like, why is he even – I think he was one of the Lewis specials, like 0.9% owned. I'm like,
Right.
man, he's solid. But I looked at
Right.
week one. He had 8 catches for 39 yards in week one. Like 39
Yeah.
yards sucks, but 8 catches. Sean Payton likes a guy. If you're
Right.
going to call his number that many times. And so he was playing through a rib injury through practice last week. He's like, he could be pretty good. I mean, I don't care if he gets 6 for 20. Give me
Right.
8 points, man. That's all I need. And
Right.
if they're looking at him coming across, I like that option. Turns out he got hurt. So he was a game time inactive. So at 11:15 in my daughter's soccer game, I'm like, so I'm then rapidly scrambling for the other person I picked up to immediately put him in. And the second one you guys probably have heard of. He's been around for a minute, but he's just kind of had an injury-plagued career so far. Noah Brown for Washington. And he got cut by Houston right at the end of
I
camp.
remember Noah Brown.
Yep, and so they picked him up. He's a former Ohio State boy. Played with Scary Terry back in the day. And then right after McLaurin graduated, Noah Brown, it was his year to be the main guy, and then he got hurt. And then he came back and played a little bit, and he still got drafted. He's had a checkered career. But I looked back, and his 2 best games have come against the Bengals. And so I was like, all right, man. He just sometimes you just love beating on a team. And by all accounts, Noah Brown looks legitimately to be the number 2 wideout because it's up for grabs. I think that's one reason that they picked him. And Dan Quinn, the Washington Commanders coach, obviously was at Dallas last few years. He's with Dallas earlier in his career, I believe. So they crossed paths somewhere. So I believe that's how he got to Washington.
Right.
And yeah, so I don't know. I picked him up. I thought he was gonna be pretty good. He wasn't too bad. I think he had 3 for 39 because I had him in a parlay. I needed one more catch for 21 yards to get a monster parlay. I think I did 4 for 60 or something like that. Didn't get it. Didn't get much looks down the stretch. But he's also 2 weeks into learning the playbook. So I think that's more what it is. But I think going forward for sure, people, if you have injuries and you're still scrapped and strappy and trying to find somebody to put on a roster, you're going to be worse than Noah Brown. I think he's going to continue to get more and more looks as the season goes on.
Yeah, 6 or 7 points for being on your roster 45 minutes before you started him is not too shabby.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. Well,
So
Prue,
how about
you still have your head, Prue?
Oh yeah, Prue Dog is dominating.
I like that.
I finished second the first week. I dominated second week, finished first. This week I finished like 8th, but I still had close to 100 points.
Nice. Who's your biggest contributor so far, and who's your biggest flop?
Yeah, that's good.
So Kamara was easily the biggest contributor last week. I picked up Marvin Harrison after week 1. He had the terrible week 1, and he's had 2 solid games the last 2 weeks.
So someone didn't cut him. That team just got cut.
That's the team that got cut.
Okay.
Yeah, and
you got a perfect storm to get him. The 1 for 4.
Yeah, he had Olave and Marvin Harrison were his first 2 picks, and everybody went for Olave.
Yeah,
and I was like, I don't want to overbid for somebody that high,
right?
First rounder, and so I bid $12 on Marvin Harrison.
No, you got Marvin Harrison for $12.
Yes, sir.
That is stealing.
Yes, so I stole him. I already had Debo and Nico Collins, so I'm set.
Debo were his pronouns.
That's right. He definitely has. He definitely has was-were pronouns.
This was a rough week for C.J. Stroud, who's my quarterback. So he disappointed a little bit.
Vikings, let's win this game. Go Vikings, honor thy name. That's right, baby. That Vikings defense, you don't want to mess with it. Better watch out. You're starting against the Vikes.
Even with a sub 10-point performance from CJ, I still had about 100 points. Everybody else contributed. So
nice. I like it. Chisholm.
Yep.
Yes.
Week 3, how'd you do?
Man, I killed it in week 1. I won got the high score, and then the last 2 weeks I have eked by. I'm like, right above the cut line, and like the biggest disappointment for me is my man Travis Kelce. Man, he has just done nothing, and he's hurt me a lot. CJ Stroud's been kind of inconsistent for me. I just had Devontae Smith get a concussion, so he's my number 1 receiver, so he's probably out this week. But I've had a little, he's a was-were. I've been pleasantly surprised by Tony Pollard, who's done pretty well for me, and then Jaden Reed has also done pretty well for me. Both those guys have stepped up. But
yeah, I was concerned looking at your team with Jaden Reed when my quarterback Jordan Love went down, who's now been out since.
Yeah,
but now he's actually been pretty good. Like he's stayed consistent, that bodes well when Love comes back, because that means he'll probably triple those yards every single week.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping so, but it's definitely going to be a tight week for Chiz this week. I'm going to have to look at the old waiver wire and see what's out there.
Yeah.
Starting to get deep enough into the season, there's a little bit more value out there.
There's at least a starter out there usually.
That's right.
Yeah. So I had a dumpster dive for quarterback too, shrewdness listeners. So I also picked up the Red Rocket, and it turned out great.
That was timely.
Think if you listened last week, we were both talking I would have been on our Royals and Chiefs pod. We do our bets, but Chisholm and I loved Carolina last week, and mostly because Carolina is not a bad team. They just had the 32nd best quarterback running it.
For sure.
And Andy Dalton, he may not be the best thing since sliced bread, but he's a top 18, 20 quarterback. He's been to a Pro Bowl or 2. He took a couple playoff teams with the Bengals. He filled in admirably as a backup when he's been called on the last couple of years.
That's right.
Weird. He goes out and throws 300 plus and a couple touchdowns. That's all I needed, man. That's pretty good. And then my biggest guy that's been carrying me is Saquon Barkley, who I've loved ever since preseason.
That was a great pick.
Yeah, it
was a great pick. And I know we talked earlier in the year about how, like, hey, could he be the number 1 overall running back this year? Turns out, because CMC, I don't know. I'm hearing all kinds of rumors. I just want to pity you CMC owners out there, because now there's talk of him going to like the Achilles specialist and like overseas, and oh my gosh, like it's starting to get really frightening if you're sitting with CMC on your roster.
Yeah, it is. And then my other flopperooski to join you guys with tight end, Kyle Pitts has just been pitiful. And so then I was like, I'll pick up Evan Ingram. Tore his hammy before warm-ups last week. I'm like, great. So now I've got a guy who I think has upside, because Strange keeps doing well, the backup for Jacksonville. So I'm like, well, if Ingram just finds a new hamstring and goes to the Dollar General and picks one up, maybe he can play. But otherwise, man, Kyle Pitts had one play. Thank God he had that.
Yeah, he did.
If he
did have one play
in the end zone, it would have been well worth it.
Right.
But no, he goes to the half-yard line and
I know. I thought of you when he fell off the
Yeah.
half-yard line. I was like, "Oh, Dex is not pleased
you
right
little,
now."
like if it's gonna be a big play against my Chiefers, just
Right.
don't screw me and fall on the half-yard line and give it to someone
And he
else.
did. He gave you the worst possible outcome.
Worst.
Yeah, at least he didn't fumble after he fell.
That's true. He could have fumbled it out of the end zone.
Could have spiked himself.
Yeah, there's definitely some options he could have done. So I think you're right. Yeah, this week, my biggest problem with my team right now is I'm starting the Tennessee wide receiver core that's not DeAndre Hopkins. And so I've got Boyd and Ridley, and I just cannot believe how bad Ridley's been doing. He did all right last week, but not 2 days ago. Like week 3.
Well,
just
when
not
you have
good.
Will Levis throwing you the ball,
The other defenses are catching more than their team.
Totally. Will Levis is. You've seen his head coach go off a few times, and he would be the type of guy you would go off on as a head coach because he has lots of talent. He has a great arm. He could potentially be a really decent quarterback in the NFL, but man, he just insists on making the dumbest decisions at the worst possible time. And that team could very easily be 2-1.
Yeah.
Like he has given a couple games away.
Oh,
In
he totally
Chicago.
handled that Chicago
was
game was
terrible. Just
That was
god
bad.
awful terrible.
I mean,
He just keeps making horrible picks.
he is the opposite of Patrick Mahomes. It's like, whereas Patrick Mahomes always pulls something out at the most clutch time, at the most inopportune time, Will Levis will make the defining mistake of the game. It's like it's like he has a knack for it.
Yeah.
So
I feel like Levis is challenging Trevor Lawrence for the crown this year about who can be worse. It's up there.
Well, I mean, we have seen some really bad quarterback play in the NFL this year.
Is it the defenses are figuring stuff out? Because if you've noticed the scores, the over-unders and stuff, and just scoring in general, passing in general, down tremendously.
Passing way down.
Like, I don't know what the real stats are. I know I heard it somewhere, but you don't need to hear it. You can just watch the games. You can see the scores. You can look at the stat lines afterwards. It's just, for whatever reason, people aren't throwing 400 yards a game anymore.
Well, to Dex's point, saw this stat. If you guys, some of you may have seen it, but the only quarterback this year to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in the same game is Andy Dalton.
Woohoo! Red Rocket.
So, like, you think like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, no, it's none of those guys. It is the guy who's coming off the bench on the Carolina Panthers. So, like, I do think that defenses are starting to figure it out. It's been such a pass-heavy league for the last 10 years that maybe the defenses are starting to catch up and figure it out. Maybe we'll have the resurgence of a running game, which would be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But it's still, if you're a fantasy player, you're not going to be able to count on like the massive game from your quarterback. You got to start looking in Guillotine about like, how am I going to scrap together some points because I can't count on a 30-point outing from my quarterback.
And ideally, you can get that running back out of the backfield who's also catching, because then he'll get a goal line carry. He might get a little third and Kimball Anders play from back in the day.
That's right.
Like, hey, this is no business being a play, and then they call it. So it's stuff like that. I think there's not many out there though still, because what's funny is like some of the guys that you would think. Oh my God, the Blake Corum, is that the Rams backup right now? People thought he would actually get more carries. I think I heard he's touched the ball 8 times this season. 8.
Yeah, he's not getting it away from Kyren Williams.
Is like it's got glue on his hands. Like, I'm not coming out. I'm not letting go of this ball. I'm taking all the touches. Like, he's the greedy kid on Halloween who puts the whole bowl in his bag.
That's right.
So Kyren Williams is taking all the candy from Blake Corum.
He absolutely is. He is.
So I've got a similar situation with Trey Benson, backs up James Conner.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's a stud backup, but he's touched the ball like for I think 4 fantasy points all year.
Yeah,
right.
He just does not get snaps.
Yeah, no, it's very challenging to find those guys. So if you look at value this week for the listeners who are out there who are a little bit desperate. you guys have anybody that you're eyeing? There's a couple guys that I see. So at this point in the season, right, you're looking for somebody to get you, 7, 8 points,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
You need to get somebody that can do that for you. If we look at, one of the things we do is look at who's been rostered a lot in leagues and who hasn't. Um, there's a couple wide receivers that are value out there that I like. One is, and I don't know how to say his name right ever, but the Bengals wide receiver, Iosivas. Thank you.
He's on everybody's team, though. He's not going to be available.
Nah, he's only rostered in 57% of leagues. So,
Is he really?
I'm trying to
pick him up for $2 this week.
Yeah, you got a shot in a lot of leagues. So about half the leagues, you got a shot to get him.
That'd be a good pull. I think he'd be easily worth, because he's gonna be the starting slot guy no matter what. And when T. Higgins inevitably gets hurt again, he'll be the number 2 again. That's a good pickup. Yeah, he's been out of our league the whole season, so I haven't really had to.
57.4 is what my
another one that's out there is speaking back of our friend Andy Dalton. Xavier Legette, who had received no attention from Bryce Young and is a rookie, had a 6-point game, and he's only about half the rosters. He could be a guy who you could pick up for some value because they don't have a ton of talent on that team. So he's one that I like to look at. And then the third one I like is wide receiver for the Falcons, Ray McLeod. Ray is averaging 7.5 a game.
Yeah, he seems to have a good chemistry with Cousins for whatever reason, because it sure ain't
does.
Kyle frickin' Pitts. So
no,
I don't know. You gotta work with what you got.
He is preferred over Kyle Pitts, no doubt. So,
it's unbelievable.
Some guys to look at for sure. You guys have anybody that you see out there that you're like, hey, this guy might be worth a pickup, especially given some of the injuries that are out there in the league?
A couple of them that I started with earlier, like I said, I think Devon Vele for Denver, if he fills that role as a Marcus Colston type Sean Payton player from the old Saints, that's kind of his comp. He's a big dude. He's like 6'5", 220. He's a big moose that caught 8 for 39. So he's that guy that moves the chains, and he's going to be targeted short.
Yeah.
And he's also going to be targeted goal line. I don't know if Denver's going to be able to move the ball against the Jets this week. Maybe not this week is the best week for him. But in general, I think he's not bad. Again, I like Noah Brown a lot. He's shown it. He's had multiple 150-plus yard games in the pros. They signed him for $4 million to be the 5th wideout for Houston. I mean, the thing is, $4 million for your 5th wideout after you have Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs and Collins and Tank, and they still wanted to pay him. It's just they got too much, where at the end of the day, he had to make some roster space, and he was coming back from a shoulder injury. But he's healthy, and he looks good, and I think he's going to be the number 2 wideout. And I think Luke McCaffrey also, I think he's only 38% owned. I think getting in on Jaden Daniels early this season is going to be just like getting in on C.J. Stroud and those wideouts last year.
Definitely see that.
I'd rather get in early, and McCaffrey and Noah Brown are those guys I'm looking at. I mean, if you're not getting excited about Washington's offense right now, I'm looking at that kid play in prime time.
Woo!
I don't know
that
what
boy.
You're watching, then.
I'm hoping you've seen the replay of the bomb to Scary Terry.
Amazing! He got laid out, stayed in, and still threw he couldn't drop it in any better.
Exactly.
I mean,
like if he handed it off from the corner of the end zone, it would look like that. I mean, that's what it was.
Right. Without a doubt, he's the leader right now for Rookie of the Year. And of all those quarterbacks, there's a lot of them that were drafted. That everybody knew the dude could make plays. The question was, is he big enough and is he going to be durable enough? And the thing that is remarkable about him is between the years, he's had a really, really smart play from a rookie. Yeah. Usually you see rookies, especially in tight situations. I mean, they went for 2 4th downs last night with a rookie quarterback, and they got them both. And it was like,
and it was
and it was totally him. Like, you really got to trust a rookie quarterback to be doing that in that scenario. So they obviously know the kid knows the stuff. If I agree, Dex, if you could still get him somehow in a league, or you got a guy who doesn't realize what he has, it'd be a real awesome time to make a trade offer.
Yeah, I think
I've got one more. So Cortland Sutton is probably owned in your league, 80%, 78%. he's easily getting the most targets on his team.
Yeah.
Denver's showing some signs of life.
That's true.
So he's not a bad pickup. He's probably owned by most leagues, but 80% is not a given. And then the other one I was looking at is Tutu Atwell.
Oh, I picked him up this last week, and I am very happy.
24.7%. He's owned in only a quarter of leagues. And his next 4 opponents, or next 3 opponents anyway, Chicago, Green Bay, bye week, and then the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah.
So he's got some opportunities these next few weeks.
And lots of injuries in that receiving core. So he's going to get snaps.
He's going to be in there.
Yeah.
So there's a couple more possibilities. There's some value out there. Like I think you just said it earlier, Chiz. Now that a few teams have gone out, the player pool is shuffled back in a little bit where you've got some opportunity to get a starter. At least.
That's right.
And you want guys that are going to see lots of snaps. That equals production.
That's the key.
It is.
That's the
you want to
key.
be on the field, and they also need to be able to throw the ball. So when you had Bryce Young, didn't do any good. You can be on the field all day, and you just ran 40 routes of practice. So
right.
You got to have someone doing something. I think another thing I want to hit on, tight ends, man. That is a position.
Yeah, there's some good ones out there still.
The entire world thought was going to be such a strong position.
Yeah.
But right now, if you own the top, I think 4 or 5 picks is like Travis Kelce, Laporta, Mark Andrews, Evan Ingram, Kittle's out, McBride's out. So I don't know if you took any of the top 8, then Njoku's out, Hawkinson's
it's not
out.
good.
Like the thing is, the top 10 tight ends.
Mark Andrews is basically out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But like they're either out or not playing, and
right.
It's just been an absolute desert this year. But I think a guy that stepped up, we're talking pre-show, is Strange, is the backup to Evan Ingram for Jacksonville. Now, Jacksonville might be sucking, but Strange has scored 2 weeks in a row. He's finding opportunities, and again, that's what you want. You need opportunities plus a little bit of talent. Throw that in there, and you're good to go. Jake Ferguson, Turd, came back last week, so kind of got the was it Schoonmaker? Whatever that guy.
Schoonmaker.
Yeah, so he's losing a little bit of value. Isaiah Likely, weird. What we said the first week was kind of an illusion, and 1.4 points last week. So surprising to the shrewdness. Not at all. That was a freaking fluke, man. So,
everyone jumped for the fool's gold there.
It is. So
another tight end that I like is Tyler Conklin. Seems like Aaron Rodgers is throwing his way, and he's only rostered in half the leagues. Yeah. So
Conklin's been pretty decent everywhere he's gone. He's not going to be that.
He's never going to get you 20, 30 points, but he's pretty good to get you 7 or 8, and that might be what you're looking for.
He got me 14 on my bench this week.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I know.
I picked up Gesicki. Gesicki's also scoring well for a tight end 20 or whatever he started out the season at.
Gesicki looked like he kind of got nicked the last game, but he's not showing up on any injury thing, so he must be all right.
He was, he missed a practice or 2 this week, but I was watching closely because he was my go-to pick, and I didn't want to pick him up and then immediately not be able to use him.
Yeah.
Right.
And another one for shrewdness listeners out there, and you're going to hear me going back to the well for Washington. I mean, Zach Ertz had a great game. Sounds good. If he's out there, he's worth picking up. Certainly, if you have one of those first 8 injured or horribly underperforming ones I mentioned, give something. But the thing is, Ben Sinnott, when Zach Ertz inevitably gets hurt because he's old and he always gets hurt every single season since inception, Ben Sinnott was after Brock Bowers, I think he was arguably the next best tight end in the draft this year.
I think that's right.
And he's starting to get more and more snaps each week. So he is someone worth looking at. I can't remember his Iowa State. I think he is Iowa, though. I feel like it's tight end.
I think it's Iowa. Iowa.
But Ben Sinnott is someone to just keep on the radar. And inevitably, when Zach Ertz gets hurt, or especially if you own Zach Ertz, if Zach Ertz is your guy and you have a spot, it's not the worst thing to have that guy who's going to be running routes. Right.
Two deep cuts for you if you're hurting for running back. So one of the things that at this point in the season, right, you got to start 2 running backs and Guillotine. Sometimes that can get pretty dicey with all the injuries that are out there right now. One deep cut, Miles Sanders, blast from the past. Miles Sanders
that is a long time ago.
Is still playing football.
That's like
in the NFL.
Is that Madden '98? I mean, what
right?
year was that game?
He's averaging 6-7 points a game. He's only rostered in half the leagues, so he could steal some stuff from Chuba Hubbard. He's going to get in there a little bit, probably some on third downs. And then the other one I'll throw out there, this is a wild card for sure, but just got put to the active roster. Mr. Kareem Hunt was just brought up for the Chiefs, and so I can't imagine they're bringing him up to ride him on the bench. So I imagine he's probably going to be splitting carries this week too. So you might get a sneaky touchdown from Kareem Hunt if you need somebody.
And the thing is, if you have some Pittsburgh running backs, I believe both of them are questionable. I think Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren both.
Jaylen Warren is definitely. I don't know about Najee, but I know Jaylen Warren is
this week. Let me look at it. I had it up just a second ago. I wanted to hit on that.
His apparent right arm injury is not a concern.
Najee Harris picked up a shoulder injury and was seen with his right arm in a sling following the game. So you can say that's no big deal, but when you're slinging your way out of a game, I feel like something's up, and maybe that's just precautionary.
Sling is not as bad as the boot. The boot is the worst.
Yeah,
if you have the boot,
good.
Forget it.
According to Tomlin, Naj will be ready to rock and roll.
Okay, all right.
As of today.
All right. I mean, maybe they're giving him the old Neil Smith. Remember that big old cast he used to punch people with illegally?
Yeah.
But it was great for us.
Absolutely.
God, that was stupid, but it was awesome.
I do think Jaylen Warren is a little more dicey.
I do too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Jaylen Warren injured his knee, and that's the problem, man. I guess shoulder is not as bad as knee, and they probably just X-rayed Harris and stop being a baby buck up, and here's a needle. But it's kind of harder to do that with your knee. So wideout considerations. I mean, there's already a truckload out, but we added to that pile this week with Devontae Smith and Adam.
I
know.
Both of them on my roster.
And I think Padog's got Thielen, right? Or had Thielen. So out week 4 to minimum, likely multiple weeks for Thielen. Devontae Smith, just concussion protocol. I mean, it's not just. We've seen how that can be weeks. Sometimes they're back next week, and sometimes it's not. But that was dirty, man. He had a cheap shot against.
It really was a cheap shot, which really made me unhappy because
I mean,
to lose a guy is hard enough. To lose a guy to a cheap shot's really hard to take.
Yeah, but it was brutal.
It's getting dirty. There's some other options though, because AJ Brown and Devontae Smith not playing, so there's going to be some wideouts that have to suit up for Philly. You may not love them.
I had Jahan Dotson on my team.
Yeah,
I thought the same thing this week, but he's just
now
not
there's
getting looks.
Really nobody else, so they're running out of ways to avoid Dotson.
But they're just feeding the ball to Saquon and feeding the ball to Goddard.
Dallas Goddard, Saquon. Like that.
There's nothing wrong with Saquon. And the thing is, you think Gainwell would get more, but he's not really getting any more either.
Yeah.
No.
I want to see.
I am worried for Dex. I am worried a little bit for you because, like, man, when your 2 starting wide receivers are out, if you're not keen on Saquon, what are you doing, right? Yeah. I mean, like,
throwing it Dallas Goddard, obviously.
The other thing that happens, so Jahan Dotson, great, he's your number one. Guess who's guarding him? The other team's CB1, right? So just because he's getting more looks doesn't automatically mean he's gonna get more points.
Yeah, so on that line, I think if I'm looking at that, if you're one of those owners out there, I think Britton Covey is probably available. And that he had a couple looks the first, I think week 1 or week 2. One of those two, he had a pretty decent game. I don't know how he did this last week. I remember him not standing out, but I'm sure he's probably available in a lot of leagues. And he was the guy running that slot and all that stuff, but he'll now be, I mean, heck, maybe they still stick him in the slot and just throw another warm body out on the end. But I think that'd be someone worth looking at as Britton Covey.
Yeah, I agree. It is pretty thin out there. It's pretty thin pickings when you start to have to go to some of these guys. But somebody is going. This is the point in the season where somebody you've never heard of is going to win somebody leagues.
Yeah.
Like, it's like somebody's going to get slotted in because of injuries. They're going to stick. They're going to keep producing. And some dude who, like, nobody even had in their top 300 when they went into their draft board this year is going to take hold.
So I want to ask you both this question. So if you're one of those owners in Guillotine and you picked up Carson Steele last week, and now you're giving the news to everybody that Kareem Hunt just got activated off the practice squad, are you starting Carson Steele this week, or are you going to try and be one of those guys to put some money on Kareem Hunt and just listen to the KC beat reporters all week, or what? I'm almost a stay away from both.
Yeah, I was all nervous. I threw out the Carson Steele 3 catches and whatever last week.
Yeah.
They used Pirine a lot more than I thought they would.
Yeah.
They did.
He's definitely the third down dude.
Yeah, they did throw the ball to Carson Steele twice. One was a pretty, I don't know, not really a throw to him. I don't think it was just a throwaway in his area.
Throw at him.
Yeah, but he did have a ton more rushing yards than I thought he would have.
Crocky J runs hard, man. I gotta admit, the dude Crocky J runs hard, and you know he doesn't have the same burst as Pacheco, but he's a tough runner. He's what you want from that standpoint. He's one of those guys that like has seized the opportunity.
Yeah.
And
he gave his owner 17 for 72 last week.
Yeah.
Plus a catch. I think it was a short catch.
Yeah.
2 yards catch.
What,
yeah.
8.5 points. And you
pretty good.
Especially a September, October player. That's what you need. I mean, you're not winning anything in November, December. You are going to get your head lopped off. You're still starting Carson Steele later. But
that's
for
right.
like early in the leagues.
Yep.
And that's why I still wouldn't panic. And we've been pressing patience to all you new players out there. You can get by. As long as you have – if you lost both your horses, okay, probably need to go blow some money on whoever's out there, especially if you're still alive. If you lost both of your best players, your first 2-round picks or 2 of your first 3, sometimes you got to be a little more aggressive. But at the end of the day, these guys, a lot of these aren't they won't even be starting for you in like 8 weeks. So don't spend your entire fab on guys that inevitably will not be starters for you down the road.
That's right.
So that's kind of my last deal, but you don't want to spend so much on those early picks that you have no money to pick up down the road when people start coming available. Because a week 7 team that gets cut has got some players, man. And you'll be able to pick them up for, pennies on the dollar. So we're trying to stress you if you've not done it before, because I know many times people are new to Gio first couple of years. So it's kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah, I will readily admit that my league is less competitive than Chisholm's and Dexter's, but I've spent 16 fab dollars and 12 of them were on Marvin Harrison.
Huh.
So I feel like I've got the highest scoring team so far after 3 weeks.
I would hope so.
So I'm sitting pretty. I do not plan on spending more than about 10 fab dollars in any given week until about week 10.
Yeah, when bye weeks start coming, that's the next time you need to panic, because sometimes it's not your guys are hurt. It's just they're on bye at the same time.
Which will actually be next week. So we're at week 5 is the first big wave of bye weeks. So we'll be talking about bye weeks next week, how you handle the bye week.
Yep.
Because there's a wave of really good players that are out next week.
Absolutely. And it starts
you got to figure out how to plug it.
It starts week 5 and it doesn't slow down.
I have 4 players on bye in week 11, and I have 3 more in week 12. So that is my sticking point. I'm pretty well set until then.
Yeah, and by week 12, you'll have enough talent and money, it sounds like, to be able to not have an issue with that. So I'm going to go, just before we wrap this up, some of the surprises from last week, just football in general. Denver going to Tampa and stomping them 26-7.
Woo!
Man, you had Tampa players in that game, and you're rocking Godwin and Evans and Rasheed White and Bucky Irvin. You thought you were going to have a heyday, and Baker, number 1.
We got bad Baker last week.
Bad Baker pie chart, which, again, listen to our Royals and Chiefs pod where we talk about our gambling bets. And unfortunately, I went with bad Baker, baby. Son of a.
Every so often, Bad Baker raises his ugly head, and he did it last week for sure.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Woo!
Another big surprise last week, which may not have been too surprising, but it's Green Bay 30, Tennessee 14. Malik Willis, I just don't know if people really saw this. That's 2 weeks in a row now where he's just looked highly competent after being just an absolute eyesore trash bag when he was in Tennessee.
Yeah,
like so bad they just let him go for a bag of Pringles, man.
Yeah,
that's it. And now he's like, Jordan Love's like, man, they may just keep him out for like a couple weeks, make sure he's really good. Yeah. And then when he comes back, because you don't need to rush back when you're crushing teams by 2 touchdowns.
Right.
So that'll mean big picture, long run for your $250 million quarterback. What's 2 more weeks if you have a competent backup?
That's right.
So interesting. It could screw me because I want Jordan Love back, but that's all good. Minnesota 34, Houston 7. Another shocker. I'm going to say it, even as a Vikings fan, I thought that'd be a tight game. But Flores defense, I'm telling you, Gio players right now, watch your starters if you're going against Minnesota. So I'm just saying, they are locking down all teams. You thought San Francisco was good. They were. You thought Houston was good. They were. And it's just they are trucking people. And
he is definitely doing something pretty incredible there with that defense.
And 2 of their starters were out last week, and they held them to a touchdown.
Literally
their first-round draft pick was not playing, Dallas Turner, and I believe I think one of our linebackers or corners too. I can't remember which one it was. One was nicked and played, and one was nicked and didn't play. So, and then the other one, which we called this last week, and it was on our other podcast. But Washington 38, Cincy 33, because the Chiefs break teams. They break teams. And when Cincinnati lost on a heartbreaker, we then gave the next team, especially when you're going to look past them, which Cincinnati was totally looking past Washington. I don't care what they say. Like, we lost the Chiefs, but now we're going home on Monday night. We can't lose, baby. We're going to beat this rookie. Right. And then Jaden Daniels said, what? Say what? I'm here. I'm here, bitches. And all those Washington players suddenly came up, and that could be a coming out party. And it wasn't anything that looked lucky. He just looked good. He looked good, and just better than their defense. And so that was another
looks like a seasoned
surprise.
NFL quarterback in week 3 of his rookie year, which is quite impressive.
So any other surprises from last week you guys want to highlight or point out? Those are the ones that stuck out to me the most.
I mean, I feel like the NFL is just week after week of surprises, because just when I think I have it figured out, like, hey, the Giants beating Cleveland at Cleveland. What?
Yeah, I know. Like, Daniel Jones.
How does that happen? I don't understand that. Like, it's absurd that that's happening.
Malik Neighbors is how it happened.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely
one player can do
absolutely. I was shocked that that Miami looked as bad as
Skylar
they did
Thompson, though.
Without Tua. Like, I mean, I know Tua is a good quarterback. He's not great. He's a good quarterback, and like to only put up 3 points against Seattle is like.
But at Seattle, and Seattle's gone back to defensive focus with a defensive head coach again. That's surprising. Plus, it's always hard to win in Seattle, I think.
It is. And when you're flying literally as far as you can fly from Miami to Seattle, I guess we should have seen that one coming. But yeah, I was surprised at how inept they were.
That's true. Yeah, you think you see a lot more slants to Tyreek or just handoffs.
Right. Man, I would just hand him the ball.
Screen, jet sweep, running back. Let's go.
Anything to get him the ball at that point, you know?
Yeah.
So we did, pick Carolina as one of our picks last week. They did win, beating down Las Vegas by 2 touchdowns. Wasn't on
Wish I would have money lined them.
Yeah.
After they hung in there and actually beat one of what we thought was the best team in the AFC in Baltimore.
Right.
And then 2 weeks later, losing to the worst team that we thought.
So weird.
The NFL is so dynamic, and any team can beat any other team.
That's what makes it fun, though. That's why every week's fun as hell.
It is. It's built for parity, baby.
It is. So going into this week, if you have some players on these teams, at least Vegas is looking for some high points for you. So the highest over-unders this week. We have Washington and Arizona 50.5, and then we have Cincy, Carolina 48.5. So those are the ones with the most Vegas odds for most points in the game. So if you got players in there, might look to them if you got to fill a bench spot and find a backup for something. If you can get one of those dudes. Again, I already highlighted. I'm liking Washington's offense, especially what I saw. And against Arizona, D, come on, man.
Yeah.
And Arizona can't win at home anyway. And even if they do, they'll be a shootout. They aren't winning with defense. Let's put it that way.
Right.
That's true.
And then Cincy, Carolina. I mean, again, Cincy's defense looked kind of pedestrian last week, but they look better against the Chiefs. But regardless, Carolina now has an offense. Even though they lost Thielen, that hurts. But now Leggett, like you were saying, Chisholm, he's going to be probably playing. He's probably going to get that starting role opposite of Dante Johnson. I think there's going to be some points there too. So Leggett may or may not be out in those leagues for you guys, but if he is, worth a look.
He was another guy that was like in 3/4 on 3/4 of teams. So there's still a chance he's out there.
And if you're a Tyreek Hill owner, you can never bench him. But unfortunately for you, Tennessee-Miami game is slated for 36 measly points.
Right.
30, just, 21-14, man. A slugfest of crap. That's the scoring.
I'm going to say 15-12, just a ton of field goals.
Right.
Yeah, it could be a field goal fest because now Miami is on their third quarterback, TBD, who that even is.
Ooh, who is that?
Skylar Thompson got hurt last week.
Hello, Mr. Brady, Mr. Tom Brady.
But
Are you available?
Will Levis is going to be throwing to Miami more than Tennessee players anyway, so it could be one of those games. But Tennessee-Miami just kind of I have two freaking Tennessee wideouts, so I got to find some peeps. I got to find someone else to throw at. But we'll go from
Dexter's got to get creative again this week.
It is.
That's right.
Scraping the barrel for 7 points apiece.
That's it.
That's
right.
Find That's right.
You gotta get that average. I think the historical, we don't have Lou on to give us exact, but I think it was up in the mid-70s, so it's probably the upper 70s this week is my guess. So
I would guess, 77 maybe, something like that.
Find a way to 8 points per. You gotta find a way to 8 points per.
That's exactly right.
All right. Anything else you guys want to add to our Gio segment? Are we good for the week?
Nope. Keep your head on this week.
That's right. Keep your heads. Keep your heads when everyone else around them is losing theirs.
Stay shrewd. Keep
digging. Take care, y'all. We will be back soon with our regular sports podcast. We're going to talk about Royals and Chiefs and other Midwestern sports teams. But this is it for our Gio segment this week.
Like, follow, subscribe. All platforms.
That's right. All the platforms.
Join us again next week. Good luck out there and stay shrewd.